I've just had a moment with myself in the corner asking myself a question. Why is my heart pumping so hard, given that I've done it, this sort of thing, for so many years? And I did answer the question. I'll share it with you. There are several reasons why I feel so excited. The first is today, Ali Stewart's team has put together something very special, and you have chosen to be here. Thank you. That's the first reason. The second reason is that I do have my boss here, but I also have my son here and one of my brothers here. So that makes my heart race. I've also got people who I have trained in presentation skills. So pressure on, mate. You better be good. I've also got what you described, Amanda, as champions in the room. Champions are educators in their business who lead learning above and beyond their day job. And I'm looking at some of them in this room, and that's very exciting to have champions here. I'm also excited because I will introduce two guests to you today, one of whom was a last-minute arrival, and I'm so excited to share both of these guests with you. The reason is they come from different walks of life. So let's just check that I'm right with that. Is there any professional artists in the room? Hands up. Yep, my guest is the only one. Are there, oh, maybe two. Was there two? Of course there are. There's three. Thanks. Are there any professional athletes in the room? Jeremy, you can't put your hand up. Any professional athletes in the room? Yeah, and that's my other guest. So we're going to share the concept of vision through the eyes of people who don't come from the backgrounds we come from and don't do what we do. And that's pretty exciting. My purpose. My purpose is to help you with your vision. It's to help you with your vision. Even if you've already got one. So I know there are people in this room with vision. So for those who do have, this is about reflect, review, maybe reinvigorate, re-establish in your own brain why it's so important. And for those who don't have vision, it's to help you create one. Because if the people lack vision, we perish. So, I'm going to start by trying to break a paradigm, actually. I'm using the word paradigm because those were the fancy words you were coming back with when Amanda asked you questions. So paradigm is a fancy word. Here's the paradigm I'd love to shatter. The leader is the boss. The leader is the boss. Nonsense. We, everyone in this room, is a leader. If you choose to be. It's a choice. And to help you think about that, I'm going to give you my definition of leadership. And it is, leads us to a better place. Wherever you start from, wherever we are now, whatever we're currently doing, the environment in which we work, a leader takes us to a better place. And that's why it's so important we have vision. So as a leader, I've got to be able to see that better place so that I'm inspired by it and I can articulate it to the people I'd love to come with me on the journey. So there's our working definition of leadership, or a leader. Takes us to a better place. I'm going to show you a mechanism, a process, a method to get to a vision. And it looks fancy. Or there are many steps, rather, than it looks fancy. And together with a good friend of mine, we're going to help you understand just a little bit of this. We're not going to get heavy with it, but we are going to just use it to show you what is possible. It is a process called visionscaping. Visionscaping. And the creator of that process, through last-minute influence, is with us today, which is pretty awesome. Before I introduce, and he comes up and shares some of his thinking around this, Lewis Parsons, what I'm going to do is just share a story about how I have used this and how it has been used to be highly successful. And I want to take you back to the summer of 2012 in London, in this great city, when we had and hosted the Olympics. Do you remember that? Was anyone involved in any way in the Olympics in this room? Either a spectator, helper? We've got some hands going up. Yeah. Wow, that's a lot. And the rest of us, I would have thought, relatively interested observers. How awesome was it, if you live anywhere near London, to have the bike race going past your house, to have the euphoria we had in this nation? And it was an extraordinary feeling, which I can still feel now, of humanity, of openness, of joy, and of celebration. Very special. So can you imagine how excited I was when I got a phone call 2 months after the London Olympics from a gentleman called Danny Kerry. So that's Danny standing up, talking to his team. Danny Kerry, performance director, GB Hockey. Never heard of him, never met him. And he said, Mark, you've been recommended. I said, oh, that's nice. He said, we need your help. We need your help because I'm just creating a plan on a page for my journey as performance director, GB Hockey. And I've got most of it. And I said, tell me more. And he said, well, I have got most of it. I've got mission, objectives, strategy, and tactics. I've got most, but I haven't got the V of vision that has to overarch the whole thing. Can you help? And I said, as it happens, we can visionscape. And he said, oh, what's that? And I said, well, I'll come and talk to you about it. And he said, is it going to be one of those consultancies that cost us a fortune and you're in our business for years and months and we never get anywhere with you? I said, no, I need 5 hours. I need 5 hours, that's it. And so thankfully he said, go on then, let's have a go. And so we went through that 7-step visionscaping process with all of Danny's important teams. So the 14 key players in the GB performance squads. And Danny leads it. And we did 5 hours. And one of the elements that is awesome within visionscaping is that you capture your vision in an artistic form. So we don't just intellectualize vision, we live and breathe it. We bring emotion onto a canvas, which was pretty stretching for me when I first was visionscaped, because my brain said, I'm not an artist, I can't draw. I can't even draw a stick man. So that's true of anyone who goes through a visionscaping process. The team with Danny, we worked individually to create each individual's visionscape. And I've got just a few to show you. These are just a few. A snippet of what they captured. And what we found, without exception, to our amazement, was every single one of the 14 had chosen gold within their visionscape. So you can see the people at the top there and the triangle. It's all choosing the paint gold from any paint you like, any color you like. All 14 chose gold. So when we came to the point where the lovely show and tell, show me yours and I'll show you mine, everyone started to say, why have we all got gold when actually we're ranked 5th in the world and bronze would be nice? That's logical. Bronze, every single person said gold. So the vision created that day, 2013, was gold standard in everything we do. Gold standard in everything we do. Vision statement, visionscape, so we collated all of these. And they had it as a constant reminder of that aspiration, gold standard. And you may not know, but the GB women's hockey team won gold. And if you saw the final, you would have seen an opposition who were simply outstanding. The Dutch women's hockey team is breathtakingly good, and they were at their best in the final. And we beat them. So I commend visionscaping to you for loads of reasons, because it works. So what we're going to do as an audience now, every individual in this audience, we are going to just touch into that 7-step visionscaping process. And in order to do that, I'm going to ask Lewis Parsons, the creator of visionscaping, to come up and join me on stage. And do you have a microphone, Lewis? Good stuff. Up you come. Big round of applause for Lewis, please.
I like the music.
Yeah,
so cool.
yeah. Upbeat music. So, Lewis, I am going to hand over to you. I'm just going to call out, I brought the process back up. We're actually just going to touch on alive, aren't we?
That's right, yeah.
So I'm going to leave that to you, if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so this is a fascinating process. I predominantly work with people finding out what their vision of the future is and then create a work of art inspired by their energy, by their motivation, how they see the world. And I realised this inside-out process actually has something very clear to it. Firstly, you start from within. And by clarifying your inner image, that deep sense of intuition, because I think nearly every one of us has some sense of what we want to create, what we want to bring into the world. And what I didn't see was how closely the spirit of creativity is with the spirit of entrepreneurialism. Actually seeing a vision and then going after it with that tenacity, with that creativity and with that imagination, which to me are the two major overlooked leverage points that every single leader has on the inside of them. And it feels so good to come home to those two things, your imagination and your creativity. And you kind of know this is true because when was the last time you were faced with a little blank canvas? Yesterday? Maybe when you're about 5? Something like that? Was it one of the scariest things that if I was to hold up a blank canvas now, how would you feel, do you think, if you looked at that blank canvas? You can kind of feel pucker up in the room. It's a little bit nervy, and it's one of those things that actually this gradual process means you don't need an artistic bone in your body to be able to do it. And it starts in this very, very simple way, which is to think of a time when you felt truly alive. Can everyone think of a time when you felt truly alive? Maybe in the near past, or maybe some of us need to go maybe further back than that, but it can be a personal moment or a professional moment. One of those moments that you know when you were doing it, it lit you up. It was just one of those special, precious things that happened where you can't quite put words to it, but time seemed to stand still and this part of you just came out of you that was kind of surprising. So it could be something like your wedding day, or it could be like the birth of a child. I mean, they stand out in my mind as these world-changing moments in my world. But maybe try and pick a moment where you were doing something you absolutely love to do. So has everyone got a moment they can pick? Because I'm going to take us on a very short visualization process to help us get really clear on this. Has everyone got one? Give me a little nod when you've got, yeah, got one. Some of us still thinking. Everyone got one? I'm going to make the grand assumption we've all got one. Okay, it's going to help you to close your eyes. Okay, so close your eyes. It's going to be for about 3 minutes. And I'm going to ask you to put yourself back into that moment when you felt truly alive. Just give yourself the gift of this moment. Go back fully into that moment when you felt truly alive. Don't worry about all the sounds and everything you're hearing around you. Just think about when you were in that moment, where were you? What environment were you in? Who are you with? What were you doing? What could you see, hear, taste, touch, smell? And how did all of that make you feel inside? And without saying anything out loud, just consider what words would you use to describe this feeling of aliveness that's yours and yours alone. Might be peace, might be power, might be motivation, might be freedom, might be something else. So imagine that that feeling is so real that you could almost hold it between your hands and let everything else that you could see, all of that exterior world, the environment, who you were with, what you were doing, let those things dissolve, like actually dissolve them using your imagination, let them fade away like a photograph, so that all that remains is this feeling of pure aliveness, and you can hold it between your hands and you're looking at it. Just consider for a moment, what's the quality of this energy that makes you feel so alive? And by quality, I mean sometimes you might know this intuitively. It might have a feeling like bubbles, or it might have a feeling like ripples, or it might have a feeling like a lightning strike, or it might just feel completely still and calm, like a lake. And there might be colours that you would use to describe it. What colours would you use? There might be one colour, there might be two colours, there might be loads of colours, but there's probably a colour that will stand out. So just keeping your eyes closed for a moment, consider what's the quality of the energy, what's the colours you'd use to describe it, and what words would you use to describe it. And opening your eyes when you're ready. Okay, just what do you notice that's different about the room right now? It's so calm, isn't it? You could wow. I mean, you can feel it from here too. So you'll notice you've got a piece of paper under your chairs, which has got one side which says something about alive. And just take about 2 minutes now to write down, not necessarily the outside experience. I realise that can be something of a challenge because we're so used to describing things as we see them. Try and describe the colours, the emotions, the feelings, and the words you'd use to describe that interior, that inside experience that you just had. So you've got a couple of minutes from now. Okay, so how is that? For some people, it's a little harder to visualize, but sometimes when you write things down, that accesses another part of you. Part of you just starts to get clearer on these things when you write them down. And normally the second phase in the process is that we share that with one another, because by talking about it and actually being coached through it, you get even clearer. And there's something about sharing that with someone that's it kind of makes you feel a little vulnerable. It's not normally the conversation you have in your leadership management teams, but I tell you what, when that bond forms and you can't stop that conversation, it changes the way you completely see that person, and you start to be able to lead them or inspire them in different ways. But this is also a leadership conversation, right? So leaders also, as we know, need to be profoundly clear about their sense of vision. And as an artist, I'm fascinated particularly by this sense of vision. I love working with thought leaders and futurists from all over the world and asking them, well, so what does the future look like? Describe it to me. But we all have a piece of the puzzle, as I seem to see it. We all have a unique part of this global puzzle that seems to be being pulled together. And I think leaders who really can step up and accept that they've got this unique energy to bring have got something especially powerful and creative to help us see ourselves differently and really make the world a far better place, which is why I get up in the morning and why I do this and why I founded the entire visionscaping process. So there's two ways I tend to define vision. One of them is actually, it's also your way of seeing. Like Mark mentioned the word paradigm earlier. Like your vision is also, although it's someplace in the future, it's literally how you currently see the world. Because the way you see the world will also define what possibilities you see that are right in front of your face right now. How you define your reality will define how you treat other people. And as we know, we don't see ourselves the same way as we did when we were 5 or 10 or 12. You know, we grow and we develop. And it's very, very possible that the way we currently see the world needs to grow and change again, which is where the power of creativity and this leadership work is so crucial right now. To me also, leaders are artists of possibility. we have this divine almost responsibility to bring our gifts into this place. And so by defining this moment that you want to create in the future, you're also opening your mind and your imagination to possibilities that you'd never even seen before. So hope, in a sense, is a memory of the future. Right now, you've just accessed a memory from the past. But really, you've got these glimmers, you've got these ideas. Right now, you're kind of operating towards an idea of what you think the future might hold for you. And maybe that idea needs to be challenged slightly. And one of the best ways you can do that is to challenge it yourself. So what we're going to do is another short visioning exercise where I'm going to ask you to almost throw an anchor forward. Think forwards, say 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years, into the future, into a moment that you want to create. And you may as well make it a moment that makes you feel truly alive and elicits some of that energy that you just accessed before. Not only that, that it lights up the people around you, that actually makes them feel alive too, because we may as well. I mean, I can't think of a better reason to create a future, to be perfectly honest. So it might take a little imagination, but I'd like you now to close your eyes and consider a moment in the future that you want to create. It can be anything. Again, it can be a private moment. It can be a professional moment. Maybe for this, you'd like to relate it specifically to your business, your career, how you see your future unfolding. But close your eyes and consider, right, this is a moment in the future that I want to create. Okay, so put yourself in that moment. And consider, where are you? I'm going to say it in the present tense as though you're there right now. Where are you? This moment, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years from now, what's the environment you're in? Who are you with? What's the quality of the person that's around you? What are you doing? What qualities are you bringing to these people around you? What can you see, hear, taste, touch, smell? And how does all that make you feel inside? Imagine that project that you set out to achieve, it's completed and it's as near perfect as possible. What's the energy that it's taken from you to create that future? So imagine that feeling is as real inside you as that whole external world. What is the quality of that energy? How would you describe it? What words would you use to describe it? And what colours could you use to describe it? And these are interesting questions, but they purposefully engage parts of your brain that possibly you can use and stretch more. Can you amplify that energy now? Just using your imagination, can you make that energy? If it's a level 5, can you bring it up to a level 7? How does it look now? What does a level 10 look like? And just gently holding on to that energy and the colours and the thoughts and the feelings that come from that place. and opening your eyes. And just take another minute to write down those things. Thank you.
We wanted to start the day with reflection, with a chance for you to stop our crazy brains, that pace that life drives in us, and slow down and think and reflect. And I'm sure you'll agree with me that Lewis has done a pretty amazing job at doing that. A big round of applause to Lewis Parsons. I have a vision, and my vision is a world of dolphin trainers. A dolphin trainer has to connect fundamentally with the dolphin on an emotional level first. Otherwise, the dolphin will not be trained. Thank you very much. So it's connect at a very deep level first, and then you're allowed to educate me, and we can educate each other. So that's the concept of a dolphin trainer. And I'm going to mention someone in this room. I'm not going to call them out to come up, but I am going to mention them. Because for me, there's someone who's very special, and they're worth mentioning. I had the pleasure of meeting this person through the East Thames Association, Housing Association, and Shayla's here from East Thames. Delighted that you're here, Shayla. And what we did, working together with our colleagues and friends from HSBC, we helped develop talent in that area of London, which otherwise may not have had any support in that area at all. And some of the team are here today that we trained a couple of years ago, and they're now here as champions or dolphin trainers. And they've earned the right to be here, and it's just awesome that they're here. And I'm going to call one of them out, but you don't have to move, you don't have to say anything. And his name is Milton. And the reason I call Milton out is because when I first met him and heard his story, it was a story that couldn't have been more different to my upbringing. My sheltered, cosseted, relatively wealthy upbringing. It couldn't have been more different and more troublesome. And there was a trauma in Milton's life that, frankly, I hope none of us ever have to come across. And yet, he made a choice to overcome it. And his story and his inspiration is why my heart is still beating fast, because you're now here as a champion too, Milton. It's awesome, man. Awesome to see you. So, I'm going to call up the second dolphin trainer to the stage, because Lewis is definitely a dolphin trainer. The second dolphin trainer I'd like to call up is someone who I've had the pleasure of knowing for many years as a friend, a colleague, a player, an athlete, and then someone who I look up to as an awesome coach in the sport that she is a world champion in. So Giselle Mather, come up and join me. Awesome to see you. Awesome to see you. So just in case you haven't read any of the information, Giselle was an England women's rugby player and came actually, first of all, the first time I came across Giselle, she was playing for a junior club and was the first person ever to be selected to England from this lowly club. She was that good. I was one of the selectors, so I think I made a decent choice. And Giselle, you've had many successes now as a coach and as a people developer in your sport. I'd love to take you back to the time when you were in charge at London Irish with the young talent at the club at London Irish. And tell me about what was your vision, and I'm going to give you two questions to conjure with as well, and how did you enable those young talented players to create their own destinies?
Hi everyone. I think the first thing for me with London Irish and the vision that there is that there's a vision imposed upon me, first of all, and that's the vision of the organisation that you work for, and mine was obviously with London Irish, and theirs was that I had to develop elite players to play in the Premiership first team. That's their vision. For me, I had each season 36 to 38 players that I'm looking after, and there is absolutely no way that all of them can become London Irish's first team elite players, because they'd have to sack the whole first team every year, and obviously that just doesn't happen. So I needed something in order to justify for myself why I was doing it that was my vision along that, so that the lads that were there who aren't going to make the club's vision would be better enriched people for being in the scheme that I was running from 16 to 18 years of age. So I wanted to develop young men who could think for themselves, take 16-year-old lads and turn out 18-year-old young lads who could make decisions, who understood the value of hard work, and that it would give them the opportunities even if they weren't what they originally thought that they were there to do, and that was to become a professional athlete. I had the privilege of working with lads who are now playing for England, let alone for, well, they're not a London Irish at the moment anymore, they've gone on to other Premiership clubs. But I've also had the pleasure of coaching lads who are playing semi-pro, who are playing junior club rugby, who are playing all over the place, but also now are working in organisations and are very, very successful young men. So that vision, coupled with the elite side of things, because I am passionate about sport and competition and elite level performance, but having that vision alongside what the organisation's vision, because all of us, there's a few of us who set the organisation's vision, but most of us have to work within an organisation, and I think you have to have your own that complements but gets you passionate and out of bed in the mornings as well. So that's where that was for me with the club. And with the lads, the most important thing is, and it's so basic, is to talk to them and listen to them. And then by doing that, this dolphin idea, and also what Lewis was talking about, the blank canvas, to me, every time I have a new athlete that I work with, they are a blank canvas. But it's not initially for me to paint upon, it's for me to understand what's already on that canvas, and then for me to paint upon, if that makes sense. So with the lads, 16-year-old lads aren't that great at communicating, to be fair. And so it's about certain questions, it's about listening to what they say, and it's not faking the interest. I have a genuine interest in the athletes I coach. And I think that helps me enormously, that I'm really genuinely interested in what they've got to say. And then when they get under pressure or they break down or something goes wrong, I can understand often why. And I suppose the thing for me, I am the only female that works at that level or has worked at that level in male rugby at coaching. But I think I bring something to the team because I do listen, and they were comfortable to speak to me about issues that they would never speak to with the other coaches that some of them had, because they have this perception that they've got to be this macho person and that there is nothing wrong and that they're doing brilliantly. Well, none of us are like that. We all have moments where we aren't feeling macho and we're not feeling brilliant and we're not coping with what's going on in front of us. And several players, without that support, exit the programme when they shouldn't be exiting the programme. So bringing that listening and bringing that ability to understand the human being before the rugby player and valuing the human being before the rugby player is part of how I lead and how I work, because that is what brings success to the team if the individuals are happy, if that makes sense.
It does, thank you. And I love the perspective that it comes from a place of genuineness, and then the skills are listening and asking the right questions. But without genuineness, that wouldn't work anyway.
Yeah, for me to lead, any leader, I mean, it was interesting when you were saying the negativities of leaders, people who don't care, people who are not interested, brick walls, all the things that came out. A leader surely has to be interested in the people that it's not about barking orders and what have you, because that doesn't switch me on inside. And therefore, to lead, you have to be able to turn the creativity, as Lewis was talking about, on in others. And the only way you can get creativity out of people is to let them be creative. So a boss that is always telling you, you have to do this, you have to do this, do it this way, do it that way, means that you're doing a lesser version of what they can do themselves. That's how I see it. Whereas I have you've got on there starting with the end in mind, I know what I want from an outcome from the people that I work with and work for me. So I have my outcome, and then I say to the other coaches or what have you, right, that's where I need you to get this person, go. and then I try and leave them alone to do that, so that they know where they've got to get. They know that we want this player to develop their left-handed passing, etc., etc. But I don't tell them, I want you to do this drill, go with it. Yes, you've got to keep an eye on it, but I don't micromanage in any way unless, and then I've obviously, if I end up having to over micromanage, I've made a mistake in the first place. And I think that's, you have to then acknowledge that yourself, that it's not that person, it's me that didn't put the right person in the right place. But letting people be creative is part of leadership, and a lot of people think, oh, I have to be here, I have to be in their face, I have to be this to be a good leader. I don't think you do at all. So long as you've given them the outcome, the vision of what it is you want them to do, and then let people be who they are, and let them be creative, and let them bring out what they can. And likewise with my athletes, they know where they've got to be, they know what they're aspiring to, but if you coach someone to a ridiculous level, they can't make a decision on something when it happens in front of them. And rugby is if any game, is a massive game of chaos. It's just carnage out there. And you've got to make a decision. You've got someone running who wants to kill you. Not quite, but almost. And whoops. And that means that the decision you've got to make has got to be made quickly. And if you can't make decisions because you're relying on your coach to help you make those, you're failing. So you have to allow the players to make their own decisions and put them in situations where they're going to do that.
Yes, I'd love to build on what you're saying and talk about women's professional rugby. It's one of the things that we both had a vision about for many years, that women have been an amateur sport in rugby for too long. I'm delighted to say that we have professional England contracted players, which is why Tamara couldn't come. Her coach said she couldn't come today. But we also have clubs now at elite level that are getting fully professional people like yourself involved. That's very, very new. What is your vision for women's rugby and Wasps in particular, which is your club?
I like winning. Sorry, but I do. But it's a process. So I coached Wasps back in 2004 and we won. That was great. And we won the back-to-back premierships and everything was great. And then since then, the club has not become as social. It's not, because it's at the top end of, it's in the premiership, but it hasn't got that elite feel about it. I need to bring that back. But I'm the only club in the premiership who doesn't have international players at this moment in time. But I'm changing that too, although I haven't released that to the press yet, so there you go. But I'm changing that too. So there will be England internationals at the club, so that's my job, to inspire them to come to our club and to encourage them that we're the place to be. But in terms of, it's not just my club, it's not I'm a female in sport, and females in sport have been weird, have been freaks, have been whatever. And you can now see that as time's changing, we are now really valued, but still not valued enough. So we are getting coverage, and I'm not just talking about my sport, I'm talking about women in sport. And yet you go to the broadsheet newspapers and you'll find a little wee space somewhere with about the females there. But we're now media coverage on TV, and it's happening, but it's not happening enough. So vision for me is to produce a product at my club that we're proud of and we can sell to the media. And we have to be good, and we have to be better than good. And that's always been the way for me as a female in sport, that I have to be that little bit better. So when I've done all my coaching courses, it's been 100 guys and me, and it's like, oh my God. But that's my normal. That's just how things are for me. I actually took, when I did my RFU Level 3 award, I had just given birth to my daughter 6 weeks before. So I rang up the RFU and I said, I need to bring my daughter with me. I'm feeding her, and I knew there'd be this like on the end. But if I fail because I have to take her out and she screams, that's fine. But I'm ready to do the course, and I don't see that should be an issue to stop me coming. And I knew they couldn't say no because of the sexual, or all the rest of it. So I knew they couldn't say no, but it was like, it's a courtesy call. So they rang back and said, yeah, that's fine, so long as you're discreet. I thought, yeah, 100 guys, woo, come on. So anyway, bless her, my daughter was fantastic. She all through the presentations when she was awake, had her in the papoose, and I'm drawing up on the board and doing all the things that I had to do, and then feeding her when I had to there. And for 24 hours you're in this environment where you are under pressure all the time, and they're telling you have to do this and that, and then even in the downtime you're being assessed and you're talking rugby, and it's, you know. Anyway, she was absolutely fantastic. Past that stage of the course, by the time I had to do the second section, she was old enough to leave at home. But when I got her out into the car afterwards to go home, she went berserk. Absolutely went berserk. But she was clearly on my side at that moment in time. But it's just to show that when you have what you want to do, it doesn't matter that it hasn't necessarily been done before, or it hasn't. It's not what people would consider the normal. It is my normal, and it's just what I do, and it doesn't change anything, but helps me to feel what people might be feeling that are going to have to do stuff like that. And then for the girls that are coming through now and coaching, there's 2 more. So I'm a level 4 coach now, but I've been isolated in that as the only lass in that for a long time, since 2008. But there are 2 more girls now about to qualify. They're in the middle of doing their final dissertations and what have you that you have to do, and that's fantastic. And then there's more level 3s coming through, and that's how things evolve. So my vision at WASPs is for my club, but it's also for women in sport and for those that are coming through, so that the momentum that we've currently got will continue onwards, and hopefully we get more equality in everything, and the girls get to be professional athletes and can train and not have to juggle jobs and training to be good and better than good to get the credit that they deserve.
Susie, thank you for sharing that vision, and I'm with you on that. One final thing, I'm conscious of time. What's your final top tip about creating and then making a vision happen? Final top tip.
The human being. We're all human beings. You need to find the motivation of each individual to lead them, and that may be a 2-minute conversation by the coffee machine. You listen, you ask a question, and then when you meet that person again by the coffee machine 2 weeks later, you ask a question about what they told you about in that 2 minutes, and there's a little, and they go, oh, you listened to me, you're interested, and then it goes a little bit further and they tell you a little bit more, and that's really important, what I call nugget information. And then you ask a bit more, and then all of a sudden there's a rapport, there's a trust, there's a motivation. They believe in you as a genuine person, that you are interested in them because you've bothered to remember, you've bothered to listen, you've bothered to ask. Just little things all the time. The human being, you can't lead unless you understand the individual human being. It's just how I see it.
Thank you. Thank you. Round of applause for Giselle.
Thank you.
I started by sharing that leadership is about taking us to a better place. I really hope that with the help of my friends Lewis and Giselle, that we've given you some clues to how to get there for yourselves. Thank you very much.